Repeats or revenge? It's the African Champions League final this weekend, and it's the second leg between Wydad Casablanca and then Ahly in Morocco. I don't know what I'm doing. The final in the past 2 years has been played over just a single leg, but this time it's been played over two legs, and the first leg ended 2-1 in favor of Ahly, which was played in Cairo. So the second leg is being played in Casablanca in Morocco. The home team Wydad Casablanca will need to win at least by 1-0 because the away goal route does work here in Africa. But for Ahly, they'll have to just avoid defeat, and they are champions. And if they should suffer a defeat, then they should be by just 1-goal margin. And it should be a defeat where they score at least 2 goals. So they should lose by 3-2, 4-3, 5-4, and so on. And that's the only way they can win the trophy. That's if they suffer defeat. That's the kind of scoreline they should suffer with, or they avoid defeat. So interestingly, these two sides have actually met on 2 previous occasions in the final of the African Champions League. First was in 2017, and Wydad won that trophy ahead of Ahly. And then the second time again was in 2021 last season, and Wydad again won the trophy. So that's why I made the introduction, either repeat or revenge for Ahly after losing 2 trophies to Wydad Casablanca. But interestingly, the 2 times they met in Morocco, that's in Casablanca, the scoreline ended by 2-0 after 90 minutes. That was in 2017 and in 2021. This year, if it should end by the same 2-0 scoreline, then Wydad will be confirmed the champions of the Champions League in Africa. So Wydad in the competition this year suffered just 2 defeats so far before the final. So they lost to JS Kabylie in the group stages and also lost to Simba. That's at the Benjamin Mkapa Stadium in Tanzania. They lost that game also. But then in the final, they've lost the opening game to, that is, Ahly. So 3 in total in the competition. Ahly, they have suffered just 2 losses in total, and that was in the group stages. They lost to Al Hilal in Omdurman, that's the first leg, and also lost to Mamelodi Sundowns 5-2. That was in Pretoria in the group stages. But in the knockout stages, they've run through all their opponents. So won by 4-0 against Esperance, and also won by 2-0 against Wydad Casablanca. That was in the quarterfinal. So Ahly have been in Casablanca before, and when they were here, the scoreline was 0-0. But the only difference is they were leading by 2-0 in the game they came into. They were not under much pressure to deliver. This time around, it's just 2-1 margin. So a single goal for Wydad changes everything, and that's what puts a lot of pressure on Ahly. So the men leading the touchline for both teams. Ahly has been led by Marcel Koller. He's a new man in the African terrain, but he's doing quite incredibly job since taking over the Ahly job, leading them all the way to the final of the CAF Champions League. But he really does lack experience on the African continent. For the Wydad coach, he is no new guest on the continent. So in 2017, when Cameroon won the Africa Cup of Nations, the head coach was Hugo Broos and his assistant was Sven van der Broek, the coach right now of Wydad Casablanca. So he's a man who really knows how to win trophies on the continent, and he'll be banking on that hope to repeat that in the final. Ahly this season have had sort of a transformational season in the Champions League because they didn't start so well, but some players have really delivered for the team, especially Percy Tau, who has 5 goals and 5 assists in the CAF Champions League campaign this season. And in the final, the first leg, he was one of the men who got the goals. Also Hussein Oshat has been one man who has been delivering on all fronts, delivering goals and assists, also 4 goals and 3 assists to his name. So these 2 men up fronts for Ahly have really been delivering the goods. But they will have to keep a clean sheet to stand a huge chance of, that is, winning the trophy. And if they have to keep a clean sheet, then the goalkeeper, Mustafa Sober, will really have to come to par. He made his debut in the CAF Champions League only last week. That was in the final because the first 2 goalkeepers, Ali Lofty and also El Senawi, are both out injured. So he will also have to really come to the party. For Wydad Casablanca, they really have a lot of experienced players in their folds. About 80% of their squad from last season are still available, except from the head coach and a couple of players like Akrab Dari, Guy Benza, and the others who are not around, but majority are still around. And I think the captain, Yahya Brain, will have a huge role to play in this game. Also, El Muthraji, who was the man who actually scored the first goal in the final last year. He will have a huge role to play, especially at the game at the Mohammed V Stadium in Casablanca. Also, Unajem, who played 2 seasons with Zamalek in Egypt, is facing familiar foes, and he will also have a very, very big role. So the final is on at the Mohammed V Stadium, and both teams are all out to compete. Who do you think is going to win the African Champions League?